I think you're losing it.
Well, maybe it is me, and now you want to know why I mistreat you.
That's right. Now, people don't understand when you come out here. And
Well, but look at you. I mean, you don't really care what I have to say, do you, honestly?
No. I got to do an hour a night.
Yeah.
I'm looking for warm bodies.
Right.
That's all.
If
I can get 7 minutes out of you, I take a bundle, I go home to Malibu.
Johnny Carson turned late-night television into a nightly ritual, and for decades, his desk, monologue, and famous couch felt like the center of American show business. A good Tonight Show appearance could raise a career, sharpen a public image, and make a performer feel officially accepted into the big leagues. But Carson also had a long memory, a sharp sense of pride, and very clear ideas about loyalty, timing, and respect. Once someone crossed one of those invisible lines, the welcome could disappear fast. So as we get into this one, drop a comment and tell us which would be worse, getting blacklisted for betrayal, for mocking the host, or for just keeping the wrong company. The deeper you look into Carson's grudges, the clearer it becomes that some guests were not just unpopular with him for a while, they were frozen out for good. Joan Rivers.
Just another simple dress, Betty.
Oh, well, I would like to say you look lovely, but unfortunately...
You can't see probably that far anymore.
For years, Joan Rivers looked almost like Carson's chosen successor. He helped raise her profile, gave her valuable appearances, and treated her like a trusted member of the late-night circle. That made the break in 1986 feel even more explosive. Rivers took a Fox deal for her own late-night show without first clearing it with Carson, and he took that as a deep personal betrayal. When she tried to call him, he reportedly hung up on her. Worse than the anger was the silence that followed. Carson never repaired the relationship, never welcomed her back, and never spoke to her again. What had once been one of the most visible mentor-protege relationships in comedy turned into one of the coldest feuds in television. The ban did not stop with Rivers herself. Carson made it clear that people who appeared on her show could also jeopardize their standing with him. That made it harder for her to build momentum at Fox and sent a message through the industry that Carson still had enormous power. Then the story grew darker. Rivers lost the show, and just 3 months after Fox fired her, her husband Edgar Rosenberg died by suicide. The Carson split remained a wound she spoke about for years, and the freeze lasted an astonishing 26 years, continuing under Jay Leno until Jimmy Fallon finally ended it in 2014. Rich Little.
I tried to run the Tonight Show properly, but they fought me at every turn. And Johnny wants to run around doing lousy impressions of me. Take Doc's outfit. Defective equipment, no more, no less.
Rich Little built a career on impressions, and one of his best-known targets was Johnny Carson. At first, that seemed harmless, maybe even flattering. Carson had the public image of someone who could laugh at himself, and audiences enjoyed seeing Little slip into that familiar Carson cadence and posture. But there's a difference between doing an impression of someone and doing it to them over and over on their own stage. Little's Carson bit reportedly crossed that line. What played as clever in a nightclub or TV special may have felt far less amusing when the real Carson was sitting right there. Forced to watch his own mannerisms turned into a recurring gag. By the early 80s, Little's appearances dried up. Publicly, there were softer explanations about changing tastes and stale material, but Little later said outright that he believed Carson banned him. That claim has lingered because it fits the pattern of how Carson handled personal irritation. He rarely needed a public blow-up. He could just stop calling. What makes the episode revealing is how ordinary the offense sounds compared with bigger scandals. Little was not destructive, drunk, or vulgar. He simply kept pressing on Carson's vanity, and with Carson, that could be enough. Wayne Newton.
You had a rough time, did you not, with Johnny Carson?
I did.
Because he made fun of you too much?
Well, what happened is I had done his show many, many times and considered him a friend of mine. And all of a sudden, a whole new brand of humor started to be displayed by him. And he was, in that humor, questioning my masculinity.
Implying you were gay?
Wayne Newton's fallout with Carson was more than a passing irritation. For a long time, the two men had a workable relationship, and Newton was a regular presence on the show. Then things changed, and the conflict became one of the nastiest personal feuds tied to Carson's late-night reign. A major turning point came when Newton outbid Carson in a Las Vegas business matter tied to the Aladdin Hotel. After that, Carson's monologue jokes reportedly became far more pointed. Newton later said Carson mocked him for years, turning him into a repeated punchline and even brushing up against ugly suggestions that went beyond harmless comedy. Newton did not take it quietly. Lawsuits entered the picture, tempers escalated, and the feud became a real off-camera war rather than a one-sided late-night joke. Once that happened, the path back to the couch was basically gone. This is what separates Newton from some of Carson's other targets. This was not just about a bruised ego. This was an ongoing personal battle, and once Carson decided Newton belonged on the outside, he stayed there. Lola Falana.
I'm not going to make any resolutions. I'm going to get a suggestion box.
Just have people give you suggestions?
I lie anyway.
Whoopee! Wow!
I'm not even going to get involved.
You're not?
Because I lie. And because...
Well, he's making him anyway.
No, too much pressure.
Yeah.
Last year was tough on me trying to keep up with myself.
You made too many resolutions and you feel guilty that you don't...
Suggestion box. See, that's not so finalized.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you can get very tedious. This year, I'm going to do simple things that I've been torturing myself with, like...
Like simple things?
Like try to get to the bathroom before I'm in crises.
Lola Falana's case shows how a Carson ban could spread to people who are not necessarily his main target. She was a major star in her own right, a singer, dancer, and Las Vegas sensation, whose glamour and talent made her an obvious fit for television. Yet, her Tonight Show appearances came to an end amid the wider Carson-Newton feud. One reported reason was simple guilt by association. Falana was friendly with Wayne Newton, and in Carson's world, that could be enough to change how welcome someone felt. There were also claims that Carson did not love how direct Falana could be in conversation, especially when discussions touched on her race and prejudice. Whether it was one issue or several stacked together, her place on the show seemed to have quietly disappeared. That quietness matters. Carson's style was not always to announce a ban from the rooftops. Sometimes the punishment was just absence. One day the invitation stopped, and that was the whole message. Kevin Nealon. Kevin Nealon became linked to Carson's bad side through the world of impressions too, but in a slightly more mysterious way. The story that's floated around for years is that Carson kept a personal Rolodex with a note beside Nealon's name saying, "Do not book." The supposed reason was an impression bit tied to Saturday Night Live. By that point, Carson was already touchy about being portrayed as old-fashioned or out of step, especially as younger late-night hosts and sketch comics started using him as shorthand for an earlier era. Nealon's case is interesting because it feels less public than the Rivers rupture or the Newton feud. There's no giant confrontation attached to it, just the sense that Carson saw the bit, disliked it, and made a quiet decision. That fits how power worked around him. A performer did not always need a dramatic falling out. Sometimes all it took was landing on the wrong side of Carson's private judgment. Dana Carvey.
He liked it initially because I would go on, I was hot at the time, so I would go on his yearly anniversary show and sit with him, and then he would show a montage of my appearances. And I did that for 3 years in a row. And he said, you know, he's making fun of Arsenio as much as he's making fun of me, and he was very good about it. And then there was one sketch that did make him come off a little senile. I think that Susan Day was on, and Johnny didn't know that the Partridge Family hadn't been on in 15 years. So is that a good show for you? How's that David Cassidy? I mean, the girls really like him.
Dana Carvey's conflict with Carson was one of the clearest examples of comedy turning costly. On SNL, Carvey joined the Carsenio sketch, which portrayed Carson as old, insecure, and desperate to imitate the younger energy of Arsenio Hall. The joke landed because it touched a real pressure point in late night. Carson was still powerful, but television was changing fast, and Arsenio represented a fresher style. Carvey's impression was not just funny voice work, it suggested Carson was aging out of relevance. That alone may have been enough to irritate Carson, but doing variations of the bit to Carson's face reportedly made it worse. Carson could be generous with comics, but not when he felt he was being turned into a symbol of decline. So when Wayne's World arrived, Carson refused to let Carvey promote it on The Tonight Show during Carson's final year. That move said plenty. Even near the end, Carson still knew how to make the freeze feel absolute. Bo Diddley.
I found out that I was to be on your show, and I said, well, I'm going.
Yeah.
See, and it's an honor to be here.
Hey, it's great to have you here.
And, well...
Somebody told me you played, or you campaigned, or you played at the White House for John Kennedy?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I also put Bush in there.
But
I hope y'all, if he don't do something wrong, I hope y'all don't get on my case.
Bo Diddley's exile belongs to an older show business tradition where television hosts and producers expected performers to follow instructions exactly. The story tied to him is often described as a Tonight Show style offense with a very old school cause. He performed his own choice instead of the number he had been asked to do. That kind of move could be seen as bold independence by fans, but in the tightly controlled world of network variety television, it could read as open defiance. Hosts wanted to run a disciplined program, not get surprised on air by a guest doing whatever he pleased. Bo Diddley paid for that independence. He was effectively drummed out, a reminder that in that era, talent alone did not guarantee a return invitation. A performer also had to show obedience to the machinery around the show. His story may sound minor beside bigger personal feuds, but it points to the same basic truth. Carson's world rewarded polish and control, and people who disrupted that order did not always get a second chance. Now it's time to hear from you. Which Carson fallout do you think was the harshest? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below.